Morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Inside the Box. I'm Don Sagares. Today, I've got the two handsome cats from just outside Ottawa in Beau's Brewery. Since 2006, Beau's Brewing Co. has been brewing interesting, tasty beers like their Lug Tread Lagered Ale, which I'm happy to display prominently for you today. Family-run business. They take a lot of pride in creating some very unique beers with a lot of honest consideration for the environment, which we're going to learn shortly. Well vested in the community and lots of friendly relationships out there. We've got Mr. Steve Beauchesne and Mr. Will Larkin. Let's give them a round of applause here in the virtual world. Let me tell you a bit about Steve. He's the co-founder of Beau's All Natural, family-owned and operated independent Canadian craft brewery. Since 2006, Beau's has won more awards than I could fit on any reasonable amount of paper. So we can talk about that, but it's more than 125 national and international awards for everything from beer making to marketing and package design. So we're very proud to have you. Young Will Larkin here is approaching 20 some odd years in the business, as I understand it.
Oh yeah, I thought you were gonna say 20 years old. No.
Yeah. Despite how young he looks, he's got a lot of years in. From what I've seen, Will is one of the characters that just gets things done, communicates effectively, helps us get things from point A to point B, and helps make it great. So, welcome, gentlemen. How are we doing today? How's outside the nation's capital treating you both?
Very good. It's sunny outside, and got some good company, so things couldn't be better.
Very good. Thanks. And before we get too deep into it, I want to let any of our viewers and readers know Beaus.ca, BEAUS.ca, and at Beau's All Natural on Instagram for the gram is where you can find them. So we're encouraging everybody to head over there and have a detailed peek. But for now, let's have a couple of questions and answers and see what's going on at Beau's. Gents, all the time I'm asked what my favorite meals is. I'm a food guy. And for years and years and years now, I've been saying the same thing. It's a burger off the grill and a can of Beau's Lug Tread. So thank you for giving me some of my most favorite meals. But a lot of people have misconceptions about beer and a lot of beverages. If you could make one myth or preconception about beer in any way, shape, or form that means something to you, how would you make that misconception disappear?
Well, I'll start with maybe what the biggest misconception that bothers me is, which is that beer is only for men, and in particular, white men. Beer is wonderful, and since we started in 2006, people would always ask me the question, what's your target demographic? And I've always answered someone who's legally allowed to drink and has taste buds. And that's kind of the way that Beau's has always approached beer, is that it's something that is really good at bringing people together. It has a convivial kind of spirit to it, and we've used our beer to create community. And so we do beer tours with the Red Hat Society, which is a group of women in red hats that comes to the brewery and drinks beer. We bring in seniors groups, and we bring in everyone else in between. And for me, the concept that beer is a guy's drink, I find particularly just kind of silly. Because it would kind of rely on the fact that somehow we tasted things differently than other people do. And so for me, it's a matter of trying to be more inclusive and trying to make sure that we're not putting on any blinders or preconceived notions in the way that we approach community and approach our beer.
And that's an interesting point. And I think a lot of what you just described is derived in a lot of the marketing that has traditionally surrounded beer. Would you gents agree with that? it seems like we're bombarded with images of just young males having an experience with the product, but it goes much deeper than that, doesn't it?
That's right. And in particular, I would say the 1970s through the 1990s portrayed a very specific concept of beer, which was you're supposed to drink, a gallon of it, and it's supposed to, make you attractive to women, and all sorts of really ridiculous kind of notions came along with that. And I don't understand what the rationale was for excluding 50% of the potential market was, and who in marketing thought that was a good idea. But I've never kind of subscribed to that to that policy of I'm going to sell more beer by excluding people from who might drink it. But if you go back beyond sort of the 1970s, historically, women and beer were not exclusive things. Historically, women were primarily the beer brewers, as well as a significant part of the beer drinking population. It's really a modern invention that it's not an inclusive beverage.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And again, when you see the marketing partnerships, and just as a footnote for anyone watching or reading, the real reason why we're here today is to get to know a little bit more about Beau's. But we're Ascari Hospitality Group is proud to be partnering with Beau's for an event this coming June. And we're marketing that event. We're talking now about marketing. What challenges do you see? I mean, we touched upon a few, but what challenges do you see in marketing certain types of beer or your current portfolio to sort of the current users and prospective clients?
Well, I would say our biggest challenge over the last 15 months is that we've really based our whole business off of the experience of putting a glass of beer in someone's hand and telling them why the beer is important. I think we were a bit of an anomaly. More than half of our business pre-pandemic was through bars and restaurants. And we also, all of our marketing was event-based, because we have a belief that if you can taste our beer and you can hear about all the things that we do to make it special, you're going to be one of our fans. And so our biggest challenge has been that our entire business model's been kind of thrown out. And so we definitely have had a challenge connecting with people, and we're so hopeful that over the next few months or whatever, that some of these restrictions can ease up. We have been not sitting around waiting for things to end. We've really focused on online sales, on helping out where we can in the industry. But it is for social people, it's very challenging to live in a non-social world. So we're very much hopeful that everyone gets vaccinated, restrictions ease up, and that we can get back to spending time in restaurants and in pubs where we do a really good job of connecting with people.
Yeah, I echo that totally. Oh, sorry to cut in. I echo that completely. As being one of those social kind of people, my main role was dealing with restaurants, and to have that abruptly kind of end. And I can't wait for the moment that everyone's vaccinated, and it's to just get back into a pub or a dining room and enjoy the atmosphere. That's where we did a lot of our marketing and where I enjoyed spending a lot of my time. To be able to go back to that would be hugely appreciated.
Yeah, it's true. I agree with you, gentlemen. I mean, a lot of us, if we look back on our lives in hospitality and tourism as a broad category, I'm sure a big motivating factor for us was just the human connection, the social connection, and the ability to see the physical response that someone gets from enjoying your product, enjoying your service. Who knew years ago when we were starting our careers that something like this would happen, and that now I'm even wondering every time I walk up to somebody I know, like, do I shake their hand? Do I do an elbow bump? Like, it's so awkward. But when I look back on the career, we've all had a lot of years, I'm sure. Tell me, fellas, speaking of these sort of old days when we started, was there a moment that you realized, like, was it divine intervention that you wanted to move to a career in beer? Like, tell me a bit about both your histories in beer.
Sure. Well, why don't you take this one first?
My history in beer is relatively short. My history in hospitality is a little more extended. And I think the two are very interconnected. It's a way to connect people for me, just to share stories and to break down barriers and borders. Like, it's hospitality and beer in general. It's, I think, a way to connect people in interesting and unique ways through, friendly, convivial environments and conversations. And when I saw what was possible by, little small acts of kindness, that was it. Like, how do I do anything else?
Steve, what was there a moment that you realized this? I mean, you started the company in 2006, correct?
That's right. And it might have actually been divine intervention. It was an intervention of some sort. My dad was running a textile business in Vancouver, and the whole textile industry basically left Canada, moved overseas. And so he was looking for something else to do. And I was an avid home brewer and massive craft beer fan. And he came and visited me in Toronto one day where I was living at the time, and basically said, I've got to shut down this one business. I've got a few ideas. One of his ideas was basically to say, I always see you coming home with a new craft beer in your hands. What if I were to open up a craft brewery where the textile plant was? And kind of on the spot, I said, well, if you're serious, Dad, I'll quit my job and sell my house and I'll move back home and start a brewery with you. And we literally spent the rest of the day dreaming up this brewery we were going to open. And the next day we sobered up. It still seemed like a good idea. And we just started working on it.
That's, these are the most interesting tidbits that I find in some of these interviews, is to see what sort of manifested in the past to create your destiny. So you and Dad got together. Incidentally, my dad was in the rag trade too for many years. So I get that. That was a tough grind for him and probably better off. So you move back to Van Cleek. You decide, I think I said that wrong. Van Cleek, is that right?
Van Cleek Hill,
Van
if
Cleek,
you want to
Van
get the
Cleek
whole
Hill.
thing.
We do want to get the whole thing. We're Van Cleek Hill, we're Beau's.ca, and we're at Beau's All Natural for anybody there for Instagram. So you're back in Van Cleek Hill, you're sober, you want to open up a brewery. So I'm sure many people want to understand this. How do you decide what ingredients play into the creations that you're making, whether it was at the beginning or now as you expand a portfolio? First little point of interest, you have 19 different beers right now that you have for sale. Is that correct?
That's a good question. At any point in time, we tend to have somewhere between 8 and 20. And depending on the season, we kind of fluctuate, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. Lug Tread's been our flagship beer since day one. And then we've got about 6 brands that are always available. And then there's the seasonal brands that we kind of rotate through all the time. I'm also an amateur musician, and I feel like the process of creating beer is quite similar to the process of writing a song. Because, and what I mean by that is, when you write a song, sometimes there's a lyric that pops in your head, and you're like, that is just the truest statement that ever existed. I've got to write a song about it. Sometimes, a riff pops in your head, and then you got to figure out the words around that. And sometimes just magically everything just kind of spits out of you all at once. And with creating beer, it's kind of the same thing. We've had some beers where we just came up with the coolest name ever for a beer and then had to design a beer around what that name meant. There's been other times where we started with a particular ingredient that we were just really interested in, and then we decided to make the beer around that. And then there's been some times where it just feels like, again, this divine inspiration kind of comes out, and it's like, this is everything all at once. And there's, lots of variations in there, where sometimes it's like an iterative process, and sometimes, the pilot doesn't change at all to the final recipe.
It is an interesting process being in the food business. I understand that similarly. So, I think everybody thinks we're always in the kitchen or in the brew house, and you're like some wicked witch on a Disney cartoon, just throwing different things into a pot and hoping that it works out for the best. But it's interesting to see and hear you say that sometimes it's like deconstructing an idea, other times it's constructing an idea. And how do you choose some of the ingredients themselves? Like, I understand the process, but you guys are quite committed to becoming a very sustainable brewery. So how does that first of all play into your overall local and organic methodology? And then how do you source and or choose ingredients that satisfy all the varying components?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's not a very simple answer to that, because we're always trying to balance out a number of different priorities. There's sustainability, there's reliability of the supply. There's nothing worse than getting 3 months into a brand and then suddenly you can't get that ingredient anymore. There's also quality is a massive consideration, and quality is something that needs to be defined, because quality can be defined as consistency. It can be defined as this particular batch and its flavor components. There's a lot of things in there, but one of the most interesting beers that we've created, I would say, in our whole 15-year history is one of our most recent ones that we put out. And it's actually, we came up with the most simple name you could possibly name a beer. We called it Local Organic, because this beer, what typically happens when brewers are developing beers these days is they decide what flavors they want first, and then they go source the world for those. But if you think about beer historically, there's a reason why Pilsners taste like Pilsners. It's because in the town of Pilsen, they had one particular way of malting grain, and they had one particular type of hop they could get, and the water had a very specific characteristic to it. Same thing when you think about a Gosa. It's salty because the water in Leipzig is very salty. And so with our Local Organic, we actually started with the supply chain. We said, what hops can we actually buy in Ontario? And we're going to make sure 100% of the hops are sourced from Ontario. So what are they? And same thing with our malts. 100% of the malts come from Quebec, and there's only one organic maltster that we could find that could supply us. So now we're in kind of that historical setting where we have to take the ingredients that exist and keep working with them until we find a way to make them taste magical. And it's a completely different process than normal, but it was a really rewarding one, because it really put us back into medieval type brewing, where you don't get to choose your ingredients choose you choose how to use them. And we actually ended up changing the style of the beer probably 3 or 4 times, because we weren't happy with the results based on kind of what those ingredients were bringing in. And it's to the point where right now, if you read the can, it actually says it's a lagered ale. And in the next iteration of cans, it's going to say it's a pale ale, because we kept making changes to the point where it was too late to actually change the wording on the can. And we ended up actually blurring lines a little bit. It is technically a lagered ale, but we're treating it like a pale ale and then lagering it because it was the best way to use those ingredients to really kind of round that beer out fully.
And you know, hearing you describe all this, it reminds me, and it's worth noting to say, like, it does feel, hearing you speak, medieval. You know, I picture like you in a Friar Tuck outfit. I understand your kids. I understand your kids think you're a bit of a goofball, so I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that maybe for Halloween you've got this Friar Tuck outfit and you're brewing these kegs of beer. Worth noting, your local organic is as Canada's most sustainable beer. It's the first beer in the country to be certified organic and carbon neutral. You said it's made with 100% Ontario hops, 100% Quebec malts, and it's in addition brewed with green electricity. This is quite a resume you guys are building. And my question is, when one hears all of those things, I automatically think, wow, this is a premium product. Like, I want to pay more money. I feel like I should pay more money. It's a premium beer. What makes a beer premium? Like, a lot of sort of neophytes out there, what would constitute making a beer premium?
That's a wonderful question. And premium is it's a word that really doesn't mean very much in our industry anymore.
Right.
Because everything from the cheapest discount to the highest end, exclusive beer, all use the word premium. So it's really hard to kind of use that as a, oh, if it says premium, I know I'm going to get something I like kind of qualifier. And terms like craft used to be a better way to differentiate, but you know, even the word craft in beer has become so misused and so overused that it really loses its meaning. If you want to talk about what makes a quality beer, it starts with great ingredients. Then it requires a lot of time and attention. And the third thing, I think, to my mind, is a way to focus on quality that's different from sort of the macro view. And to me, that's always been an important consideration, because the way you define quality changes how you make your beer. If you've defined quality as consistency, you're actually going to make decisions that mean that you're not always going to have the best tasting beer, because you're going to make sure it's always exactly the same. And if you instead say, you know what, it's okay if my color fluctuates slightly, because you know, one lot of malt is going to have slightly different parameters than another one. It's okay if the mineral content in my water fluctuates slightly, because you know, spring water has more minerals at this point in the year than it does at another point. Then what you're really focusing on is the flavor, the impact that someone's going to have when they experience your beer, and defining quality not based on, does this taste exactly the same as last time, but instead, is this the best we could have made it today? It creates a different mindset, and then you use different ingredients that maybe have a bit more fluctuation to the parameters. I guess if you want an analogy, the apple pie that you buy from the store, the crust is always the exact same color. The insides are always exactly the same. You compare that to your grandmother's apple pie, where sometimes it's a bit burnt around the crust. Sometimes the apples are a bit more tart. I don't know anyone that's ever going to choose the store-bought pie over grandma's apple pie. But the way that the store-bought apple pie measures quality is higher quality than grandma's apple pie. And that's really what I'm trying to get at is are you trying to make this batch the best batch possible, or are you trying to make this batch taste like all the other batches?
I totally understand that. It feels like words like premium, as they're injected more and more into marketing speak, is just an exercise in marketing. And likewise, you allude to the fact, when I first think of the rise of craft beer, I think of one beer being made by one core group of people. And to me, that's what craft beer was defined. And now I see great organizations like Beau's with a long history, with a deep portfolio. What excites you most about the current portfolio you're working with?
What excites me the most is that it offers a lot. And one of the things that I love about craft beer is its versatility. So it's not like you've got two types of beer out there. You've got so many flavors, and there's so many occasions that you can customize your experience with. Everything from our flagship lug tread, which is, it's got a lot of complexity, but it's very subtle. So if you want to just enjoy a beer without a lot of contemplation, it's happy to let you do that. You also can spend hours analyzing it, but it's a really dependable beer. Then you've got beers. We've got like Wag the Wolf, which is a hoppy wheat IPA, and that's not an everyday beer. But when it's really sunny out and you're in the mood for a wheat beer that's got some kick, it's an amazing one to try. We've got our Country Vibes, which is an amber ale, so it's got a bit more character if kind of it's kind of a early fall day. And then we like to always offer seasonal products too. So during the winter months, we might have a nice stout that's going to warm you up on a cold day. And to me, what I love about craft beer is the ability to always have something different within something that you understand and that you love. And so our current portfolio has all of that, and it also has this ability to constantly have that new thing while also having a good core list of beers that you can basically have as your go-tos.
I think that makes it exciting for your clients and friends, I'm sure, as well, right? Because they get the dependable products that they can count on. They can get some versatile products, and then they can get excited about things that happen at different times of the year and what's coming next on the landscape. And here's a question for you: what do you see as an exciting trend in the landscape? Is there anything coming up, or maybe this is an opportunity we can dig in and talk a little bit more about your local, organic, sustainable, and things like that? I mean, how do you look ahead and say, this is what's going to be exciting and we're going to make it so?
That is the best way to phrase that question, because there's really kind of two ways to look at it. One is, what's the current trend and should we be following it? And the other is, how do we create a trend? And if we're talking about current trends, there's lots of trends towards less alcohol, lower ABV beers or no ABV beers. There's lots of trends towards innovative beers like sours. There's lots of things that are kind of currently happening, and what we tend to do when we see trends developing is we make an assessment. How excited do we get about that? So right now, for example, there's a trend that's not as exciting for us, which is the sort of the hard seltzers. So it's exciting maybe from a financial perspective, because there's lots of people making and selling and buying those products right now. But as a group, we don't necessarily feel like there's a lot of room for us to innovate in that sphere right now. So making a product just to make money has not ever been kind of part of our purpose. So it's something that we've kind of stayed away from. We're still talking about it, and what we're basically doing is saying, how can we take this trend and do something that we think would be interesting to us? And I don't know if we'll be successful in that or not. And then there's the completely other way to look at this, which is, how do we create the trends? How do we make the thing that then other people follow? And we're always trying to balance out, being on trend with creating trends. And over the years, we've tried and failed many times, and we've tried and won a few times. If you look at our flagship beer, Lug Tread, it was the first ever lager ale. And there's, people always said, are you going to trademark lager ale? Are you going to patent it? And we always said, you know what, if Molson's or Labatt's ever comes out with a lager ale, we'll just say that we won. and so about 5 years ago, when Molson put out their first lager ale, we're like, that's it, we won. We've also failed. We spent years trying to develop a style of beer called gruits, which are beers brewed without hops. And we put tons of effort and made tons of different styles of these gruit beers, which are really cool, and they're medieval. And they use things like bog myrtle and wild rosemary and all sorts of really cool herbs. But we really struggled with just getting enough awareness and getting enough people to kind of try it. So we've kind of taken a bit of a step back on gruits, and now we're thinking about what's the next thing that we could do that's gonna get us excited, but then also be the thing that other people follow, as opposed to being the thing that we follow.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that. And again, those of us that are in the food and beverage industry, I think it's worth noting that we probably have more failures than we do successes overall. Would you agree with that? And there's also a lot of pride in those failures, because at minimum, you're still creating something new. And you're still creating something that can be added to when and if the universe sort of lets you. I'm getting the sense more and more talking to both of you that you find most of your reward as being in this business about the interaction with the public and seeing what they actually feel. And so my question is, what do you find as most rewarding about connecting your products with your clients and friends and the public at large? Because you guys are big time. Worth noticing, at Beau's All Natural on Instagram, folks, there's somewhere between 47 and 50,000 people that are following the good folks at bows.ca. So how are you keeping these people interested? What's rewarding about connecting you there?
It's the best question. And for Beau's, we actually spent about 2 years defining our purpose. When we started like a lot of entrepreneurial ventures, where it's like, we knew what we wanted to do, but we didn't necessarily know why. And so we spent a good 2 years doing the soul searching to be able to define our purpose. And what we've landed on is the purpose for Beau's is to elevate the human spirit. And if you think about how beer lives within society and where beer is at its best in society, that's what it's doing. We're at the most important moments of everyone's life. We're there at their graduations, we're there at their weddings, we're even there at their funerals. And when you think that what you're doing is not producing a liquid that then gets marketed, you're producing the thing that is going to make someone's most important day that much more memorable and that much more pleasurable. you start to feel like there's real importance to the work that you're doing. And the sense of community that we're trying to create and the impact that we're trying to create is really entrenched in that purpose of Beau's, which is not to make the best beer. It's not to sell the most beer. It's to elevate the human spirit. And again, you don't elevate the spirit with crappy beer. So making the best beer is important. Selling enough beer is important, but we don't need to be the biggest brewery in the world. And in fact, that might actually take away from our purpose if we were the biggest brewer. It really defines who we are, and it defines how we make our decisions and why we make them when we really understand why we exist as a company.
It does make a lot of sense what you're saying, you know, and you've alluded to the fact how music and science and different things play into the whole philosophy of doing it. And I guess, you know, as one organization becomes bigger, then I guess there's always that threat of losing those core elements that define the purpose of who you are today, and therefore may ultimately compromise the product and service that you're offering to the future. And, you know, again, getting to know you both and learn more about the organization, your feeling toward the sense of community, right up to, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about your local, organic, and sustainable, not only because it's great for the earth, but how does that fall into how you define your purpose now as this has evolved?
That's that's a really cool way to that we've started thinking about our portfolio. Is now that we've got a firm understanding of our brewery's purpose, we have started taking that down a level to say, what's the purpose of this specific beer? And because local organics, the most recent one that we've introduced, we've really got that defined. Local organic is here to elevate the part of the human spirit that really is attached to the stewardship of the planet. And so from a sustainability perspective, we did everything we possibly could with that beer, and that beer exists purely to elevate the human spirit related to stewardship of our planet. And we're also we've got a pretty good definition of what lug tread is doing. Lug tread is there to be dependable, to be reliable. It's the part of the human spirit where you know, it's the friend that helps you move. Is kind of the emotional connection that lug tread is there to support. And we're looking at over time shifting all of our brands so that they each have a part of the human spirit that they're there to elevate. And then when you look at it as a whole, we're elevating the whole spirit.
That's you know, I don't know what I was expecting when I sat down here today inside the box with both of you guys. I think I was expecting a bit of a goofball beer maker, as your words, your kids' words. I got to tell you, when I'm sitting down with a couple of cool cats talking about a beer being dependable, reliable, being a friend that helps you move, having an emotional connection, and then being cognizant of the shifts that are going to happen in the future, it really does help us understand how professional you guys are. Ascari Hospitality Group and Beau's All Natural are together for an event, ladies and gents, July 8th, 2021. Packages are available for purchase a little later this week. We've got a great menu. Gentlemen, before I let you go, we gotta know, must be impossible, but which beer do you love most in your glass any day, any given Tuesday? Which is it gonna be?
Oh, it's easy. It's lug tread.
It's lug tread all day long. Will, let's hear from Will Larkin. What's the best beer in your glass, my man?
My favorite's a little bit outside the box. I'm going to go with our sister brewery, Halcyon. and we do some sour barrel aged to lambic style beers there. And I'm gonna go with Curse of Knowledge. It's a farmhouse saison, really crisp, but like lots of citrus tartness to it. Like on a hot summer day, like we've experienced the past 2 days, that's my go-to.
It's amazing to hear you guys talk about your favorites. I wish I had had this conversation 20 some odd years ago, because I feel like there would have been much fewer cans of Budweiser between then and now in my life, and a little more Beau's All Natural. Ladies and gents, final reminder: Ascari Hospitality Group and at Beau's.ca joining forces on July 8th, 2021. Visit these cool cats at Beau's.ca at Beau's All Natural. We're at AscariHG.com. Gentlemen, any parting words for anybody out there or 18-year-olds that are about to crack their first beer? Anything you want to tell them?
Enjoy.
Oh yeah, yeah. So if I could be 18 again, oh, that'd be so wonderful.
I think that's a good closing thought. If I could be 18 again. Thanks very much, gentlemen. Looking forward to more chats and looking forward to more lug tread on the deck. Thanks very much, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks, Don.
Great chatting.
Cool.